In this video, we'll be solving simultaneous equations using substitution. Solving simultaneous equations, what does it mean? Well, it's solving for two variables for two unknowns simultaneously at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to use substitution in this video. There is, however, a video which I'm going to link on how to solve simultaneous equations using elimination. Now we have different types of simultaneous equations. We have linear simultaneous equations or we have quadratic simultaneous equations. And depending on what type of equation you have will determine how many solutions you have at the end. If it's a simultaneous equation with an x and a y and it's linear, that means you'll have one x value, one y value when you're done. If, however, it's a simultaneous equation that is quadratic, then you'll have two x values and two y values. If we look at the first equation, we have y is equal to x plus 3, y is equal to x squared plus 5x minus 2. So we can see, therefore, that we have two different variables. We have an x and we have a y. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to label our equation. So I'm just going to label it equation number 1 and equation number 2. Now, if I look at equation number 1 and equation number 2, I can see that I have the y being isolated in both of those equations, as in the y is alone and the y is positive all by itself. So what I can do is I can simply substitute equation 1 into equation 2, or equation 2 into equation 1. I can just substitute them. Alright, so now what this means is, if I look at the first equation, it says y equals x plus 3. That means that anywhere I see a y, I could replace it with what y is equal to, which in this case is x plus 3. So I'm going to take what y is equal to, and in place of the y, I'm going to put what it's equal to. So that means that in place of that y, I'm going to substitute x plus 3. So I'm going to say that I'm going to substitute equation 1 into equation 2. So where I see the y, I'm going to replace it with what y is equal to, which is x plus 3. And I'm going to keep the rest of the equation the same. So x squared plus 5x minus 2. So now I have a quadratic equation and I'm going to be able to solve this quadratic equation for x. How do I solve a quadratic equation? Remember, put it into standard form. So that means everything to one side, make it equal to 0. So I need it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So I'm going to take everything to the one side. So I'm going to have 0 is equal to, there's only the x squared, so I'm going to keep it like that. And then I'm going to look at the 5x and the x on the other side. So on this side I have 5x, on the other side I have a positive x. When that positive x goes across, it becomes a negative x, so 5x minus x is positive 4x. Then I have a minus 2, and on the other side I have a plus 3. So minus 2, the plus 3 when it goes across becomes negative 3, minus 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Now, I need to solve this quadratic equation. I can just use factorization because it's super easy. Factorization, remember, 2 brackets. If you need a recap on how to solve equations using factorization, completing the square, or the quadratic formula, there are videos on all 3 of those. To solve this, I'm going to look at the quadratic equation. I look at my third term. My third term is negative 5. That means that the signs are going to be different, and I'm subtracting the factors of 5 to give me 4. X squared factored becomes x and x. There's only one set of factors of 5, which is 1 and 5. But I need to decide, because the signs need to be different, because the third term is negative, I need to decide which one gets the negative. So in order to do that, I look at my middle term. My middle term is a positive, which means that the bigger of the two numbers needs that positive. So it will be positive 5 and negative 1. So that means, therefore, that x minus 1 equals 0, or x plus 5 equals 0. So if x minus 1 equals 0, that means that x is equal to positive 1. If x plus 5 equals 0, that means that x is equal to negative 5. So now I've solved for x. I have two values because it was a quadratic equation. I have two values for x, which means that I have to get the two corresponding y values for that. Now, simultaneous equations, I could substitute these two x values into either of the two equations. However, I'm going to substitute into the easier of the two equations. So that is y equals x plus 3. So y equals x plus 3. I'm going to do that twice for each of the x values. So y is equal to 1 plus 3, which is equal to 4. Or y is equal to negative 5 plus 3, which is equal to negative 2. So now I have an x value of 1, a corresponding y value of 4, an x value of minus 5, a corresponding y value of negative 2. Alright, looking at my next two equations, I have y equals 2x squared plus 9x plus 1. I'm going to label that equation number 1. I have y equals 3x plus 9. I'm going to label that equation number 2. Now, it wouldn't matter whether you substituted equation 1 into equation 2 or equation 2 into equation 1 because you're going to get the same answer regardless. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to substitute 2 into 1. So that means that where I see the y in equation number 1, I'm going to substitute what y equals, which is 3x plus 9. So I'm going to have 3x plus 9 equal to, and I'm going to carry on because I'm substituting into this equation over here. I'm substituting into the first equation. So I'm going to just carry on with that first equation, which is 2x squared plus 9x plus 1. Now I'm going to solve this quadratic equation by taking everything to one side and making it equal to 0. So 0 is equal to, there's only a 2x squared. Then I have positive 9x on the right, and I'm going to take a 3x to join it. That 3x will now become negative 3x. So positive 9x minus 3x is positive 6x. Then I have a positive 1 on the right-hand side. I have a positive 9 on the left-hand side, which will now become a negative 9. And 1 minus 9 is negative 8. Now to solve this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that I have a factor of 2 that I can get rid of. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. Now the reason I can do that is because it's an equation. So what I do to the one side, I can do to the other side. So I'm going to divide everything by that 2 to get rid of the common of 2. And I can do that to the 0 because 0 divided by 2 will still be 0. Is 0 equal to 2x squared divided by 2 is x squared. Positive 6x divided by 2 is positive 3x. And negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Now I'm going to solve this equation. So 0 is equal to, I'm going to factorize that trinomial. X squared factored becomes x and x. When I look at my third term is negative 4, which means that I'm going to subtract the factors of 4 to give me the 3. The factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Now which of those when subtracted give me the 3? It's 1 and 4. So I'm going to put the 1 and I'm going to put the 4 inside the brackets. But the third term was negative, which means that the signs need to be different. So I look at my middle term. My middle term was a plus. So that means that the bigger number gets the plus. So I have the 4 being plus and the 1 being minus. Now I'm going to get a value for x. So that means that x minus 1 equals 0, or x plus 4 equals 0. If x minus 1 equals 0, that means that x is equal to 1. If x plus 4 equals 0, x is equal to negative 4. Now I have two x values, so I'm going to now substitute that into my equation to determine my y values. I could go into equation number 1 or equation number 2, but I'm just going to go into the easier of the two equations, which in this case is equation number 2. So now I'm going to substitute my two x values in. So y is equal to 3. In place of the x, I'm going to put 1 plus 9. So that means that y is equal to 3 times 1 is 3 plus 9 is 12. Or y is equal to 3 times negative 4 plus 9. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12 plus 9 is then negative 3. So now I have x being 1, the corresponding y value is 12. X is negative 4, the corresponding y value is negative 3. For the next set of equations, I can see that I have x plus y equal to 4, that's equation number 1, and y minus x squared equals 3x minus 1 is equation number 2. What I can notice, however, is that neither of these two equations have the x or the y as the subject of the formula. Now, I would need x or y to be the subject of the formula of one of the equations so that I can substitute into my second equation. So if I look at equation number 1, I could make x or y the subject of the formula by taking the remaining x or y across the equal sign. So I'm going to make y the subject of the formula. So y is equal to, the 4 will stay the same, and the positive x when it goes across now becomes negative x. Now, I used equation number 1 to determine this equation here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this equation 1a so that I can remember where it came from. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to substitute 1a into equation number 2. That means that where I see a y in equation number 2, I'm going to replace it with the 4 minus x. So I'm going to have 4 minus x, and then I'm going to keep going with equation number 2. So 4 minus x squared is equal to 3x minus 1. Alright, now I'm just going to solve this equation. So I'm going to take everything to one side and I'm going to make it equal 0. So 0 is equal to the negative x squared when it goes across becomes positive x squared. Then I have a positive 3x and a negative x. So when the negative x goes across, it becomes a positive x. 3x plus x is positive 4x. And then I have minus 1 and a positive 4. So the positive 4 when it goes across becomes negative 4. Negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. Now I'm just going to factorize this. 0 is equal to 2 brackets. X squared factored becomes x and x. The negative 5, my third term is negative, so I'm subtracting the factors of 5 to give me my middle term of 4. There's only one set of factors of 5, 1 and 5. But I need to decide which one gets the plus and which one gets the negative. I look at my middle term and my bigger number. So my 5 is plus and my 1 is negative. Now I'm going to get my x values. So that means that therefore x minus 1 equals 0 or x plus 5 equals 0. So if x minus 1 equals 0, that means that x is equal to 1. And if x plus 5 equals 0, that means that x is equal to negative 5. Alright, now I have my x values, so I'm going to now substitute in to determine my y values. So I'm going to substitute into my equation y equals 4 minus x. Y equals 4 minus x. Now again, you could substitute into either of the equations or any of the three equations and you'd get the same answer. So y is equal to 4 minus x is 1. So 4 minus 1 is 3. Or y is equal to 4 minus, in place of the x, I'm going to do minus 5, which is 4 plus 5, which is 9. So now I have x being 1, the corresponding y value is 3. X being negative 5, the corresponding y value is 9. Alright, last example. Again, I can see that I don't have anything being isolated, so that will be my first step after labeling my equation. So I have equation number 1 and I have equation number 2. Now the easier one to isolate would obviously be equation number 1. So I'm going to isolate the y. So y is equal to, the 7 stays the same, the 2x now becomes negative 2x. So I'm going to see that I used equation 1 to determine this, so that means that I'm therefore going to label this equation number 1a. I am then going to substitute 1a into equation number 2. So that means that I have 7 minus 2x equal to y. So where I see the y, I'm going to put the 7 minus 2x. Now we can see that the y is being squared and that there's a negative. So what we're first going to do is we're first going to square it and then we're going to distribute the negative sign. So I'm going to start by writing out my equation. So I have x squared minus, the minus stays the same. Then in place of the y, I'm going to put what y is equal to, which is 7 minus 2x. And that is being squared, which is equal to 8. So now I'm going to solve this. Again, I'm going to start by doing the squared. I'm going to start by doing this bracket, and then I'm going to distribute the negative sign in. So I'm going to have x squared minus, when I square this binomial or I square this term, 7 squared is 49. Then I multiply the two terms together. 7 times negative 2x is negative 14x. I double it. Negative 28x. And I square my second term. Negative 2x squared. And negative squared is a positive 4x squared. And I'm just going to take the 8 across now because I know that the 8 needs to be across because I need to have this in standard form. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute this negative sign into the bracket. So I have x squared minus 49 plus 28x minus 4x squared minus 8 equal to 0. Now if I just tidy this up, I have x squared minus 4x squared, which is negative 3x squared, plus 28x minus 49 minus 8, which is negative 57, equal to 0. Now I need to solve for x. So I would be able to factorize this. Alternatively, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the quadratic formula in order to practice the quadratic formula as well, because remember, when we have our trinomial, we can solve using the quadratic formula. So the a value in this case is negative 3. It's the coefficient of the x squared. The b value is the coefficient of the x, which is 28. And the c value is the constant, which is negative 57. Now I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So I've written it out there and I'm going to substitute in. So x is equal to negative, b is 28, plus minus the square root of b squared, so 28 squared, minus 4 times a is negative 3, times c, which is negative 57, all divided by 2a, 2 times the a value, which is negative 3. When I type all of that into my calculator, I am therefore able to say that x is equal to 19 over 3, or x is equal to 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute those two x values in place of my x values in my formula to determine my y. So I'm going to go into the formula y is equal to 7 minus 2x. Y equals 7 minus 2x. So y is equal to 7 minus 2 times 19 over 3. So y is equal to negative 17 over 3. Or y is equal to 7 minus 2 times x, which is 3. So y will equal 7 minus 6, which is 1. So now I have an x value of 19 over 3 and a corresponding y value of negative 17 over 3. I have an x value of 3. a corresponding y value of 1. Please will you pause the video now to attempt the your turn question. Now that you've paused the video, here is the answer. I do hope that you now know how to solve a simultaneous equation using substitution. It definitely is something that you need to practice. So remember, the more you do, the better you'll be. See you guys soon.